And we are rocking and rolling. Awesome, man. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Working Class Musician YouTube channel. I am Jimmy Franklin. And today I have one of my favorite guitar players and really just an all-around killer musician and the epitome of a working class musician, Mr. Joel Hoekstra, ladies and gentlemen. And that's where I'm going to edit in a bunch of people screaming and cheering, which...
All right.
So, how's it going today, Joel?
It's going great, man. How about with you?
Dude, I can't complain, you know. Still stuck in the house, still not gigging. I mean, so I can complain. I think that was just complaining, actually. You know? How have you been holding up?
Yeah, good. I'm honestly probably busier now than I've been. It's just crazy that it's all totally different. I mean, last year I was on the road 285 days out of the year, which was that's the heaviest it's been for me, I think. Outside of, playing a lot of shows when I had Rock of Ages here at home, like I was doing a ton of shows, but a lot of them were at home. Now it's just a totally different combination of things. I'm doing teaching master classes and one-on-one via Skype, and I'm doing quarantine videos with people, collaborations, projects. I have sessions every week. Seems like everybody's recording, so I get a lot of people to ask me to play on their stuff. And
Well, yeah,
gosh,
nothing else is going on, right? So
I've
you
been
might as well
doing
start recording.
tons of those cameos. I'm getting in songs for a project I'm doing with Michael Sweet and Nathan James right now. So I mean, it's kind of like round the clock. I've got something to do. I'm exceedingly busy. It just is like I'm not traveling the world right now.
I love hearing that because there's so many people when I ask them that question as musicians, like, oh, what are you doing now? There's so many people that have been kind of sitting on their hands and just hoping that everything would turn around. And it's so comforting to hear someone actually using all of this time the way you are right now. You know, especially someone who works as hard as you do. Your schedule's no joke, man.
I think the beginning of it, just because last year I was gone so much and I have been gone so much and I have little kids. I took, I'd say really the first 2, 3 months of it to just do that and catch up and be like, oh, okay, so maybe this is meant to be, have some time at home, catch up. But once it became clear, like, oh no, this is the type of thing that's going to drag on for a long time. I was like, I need a game plan. Otherwise I'm going to like lose, my mind, and we're going to just watch our bank accounts go,
Yeah,
you
everything
know.
you worked for,
So I
right?
was like, yeah, exactly. So it was like, all right, what's the game plan here? Let's go and just start working. And that's pretty much the way I operate. For me, I say it all the time, and it sounds cliche, but it comes down to like a daily thing. It's like, what did I do today? So I try and make sure that I'm doing something every day that's productive and moving me forward. That way, I'm not kind of like, hey, I'll do that tomorrow. It takes away a lot of the procrastination and just kind of keeps me motivated and moving forward in it. So, I mean, obviously, we can't control like what's going on in the world right now. So it's just best to kind of go like, all right, this situation, like, what's the best I can do with this situation right now?
Yeah, wow. That's incredible. And so you've been recording for other people. Have you been recording any of your own?
Yeah, yeah, I got my follow-up running games, it's called, from Joel Hoekstra's 13 is my
Yeah.
rock side project. So I had put out the first album, Dying to Live, in 2015. So anyway, the first single just came out. It's up on YouTube. It's called Hard to Say Goodbye. I also put up a song sampler if you want to listen to song samples from the album and whatever, view some of the promo pictures with some little interesting graphics rather than just go to iTunes and listen to the audio
Yeah,
only.
of course. I'll be putting
Uh,
links for everything below for anyone that's watching this right
Cool. Right on. So it'll be out February 12 via Frontiers Music SRL. So excited to get that out into the world. And I'm just now starting to hear some people have gotten the whole album to review it and things like that. And so it seems like people really dig it, and that's a relief. It's
now. Yeah, of
like
course. Always
you,
is.
you work on an album, and it's always like by the time you're done, you're so inside it that it's like looking at a painting about a centimeter from your face. So you have no
Yeah.
idea what it is anymore, and there's no perspective. So
Yeah.
it's really hard to know if it's a total turd or if it's great.
Yeah,
So
you've spent hours in the studio. You're listening to the exact same song on repeat, right?
9 million times, man.
Yeah,
Yeah,
just
yeah,
just and just to change that hi-hat a few times, just to
right.
change, whatever it
And
may be. And so So you have a pretty serious kind of, I guess, regimen going on right now that like to keep yourself in check.
Um, e- I mean, the teaching thing is my foundation right now. That kind of keeps me moving on the guitar. Like, I teach 5 days a week, so 6 students a day. So I got the guitar in my hand 6 hours right there, and then if I do a session and do some other things, I've played 8, 9 hours that day. So, I mean, although it's not 8, 9 hours of like gigging per se, but
Very
um,
different.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm playing a lot of guitar, and I think it's a good thing. I mean, teaching is good for you. It makes you analyze your own playing a little bit. There's some things that I used to do a ton of it years ago, and then everything took off for me performance-wise, and so I haven't been doing a lot of teaching. And it's really interesting for me now to like start to analyze some of the things, the habits that I fell into in my career playing wise to go like, now wait a minute, what the heck am I doing when I'm doing that? And like, now how do I convey that? How do I teach that? And
Of course.
so it's been good. It's been good for me, and it's also reminded me of some things that maybe fell by the wayside for me. So yeah, that's been healthy, and the session thing is healthy, man. I mean, just always working on that stuff, and I think all these collaboration videos. I mean, I've done a bunch of those since this has started, and it's fun. I'm working on one right now that's should be ready soon with some big name players and musicians and stuff. That's fun, and I mean, it just gives everybody an opportunity to collaborate in something that's not like for commercial release and just have fun, you know? Like for me, it's an opportunity to check some people off my bucket list of like, haven't worked with that person ever, you know? Like I finally was a part of something with Mike Portnoy. I think
I
I was
was
like
I was just
the
gonna ask
last
you,
guy. Yeah. I
who
was
was
like,
like, was one of that like your top drummer of all time that you want to work with?
well, I mean, he was definitely on that list of like, man, why haven't I ever done anything with Mike? It seems like everybody has. He's got 9 million bands, and I'm
Every
in nine.
project possible.
I'm playing with 9 million people. So it's like, how the heck has that happened? That we haven't found common ground. So that was
And
cool
you're
to have
in New
that
York,
happen. Yeah, right, exactly. And we're
down
both
the
East
street.
Coast guys. Yeah, yeah.
Dude, that's
So.
crazy, man. I'm looking forward to that as well. I'm a huge fan of Mike Portnoy as well, so that's gotta be killer.
Well, that one was that's out already. That's up on YouTube. It's called we did a cover of Starship's Jane with Dino Jalusic singing.
Mhm.
So anyway, and it's very well received. I mean, people really
Still
loved
looking
it.
forward to it. I haven't checked it out yet, so
Okay.
so still looking forward to it, no matter what.
Cool, yeah. And then I did another one with Dino where we just, for this thing called Six String Salute, a Live Nation benefit for all the crew workers out of work right now. We did another version of Stormbringer that David gave me the go ahead and said it was cool
That's
uh,
sick.
to do another version of that. So Dino is quite the young gun, man, with the singing, man. He's pretty amazing and plays everything well, too. It's a crazy amount of talent. And we have Virgil Donati on drums on that one. And I did, let's see, Jen Majura's, um, I don't know what she calls it, 1 Minute of Happiness and Fun or whatever with Nico McBrain. And of course,
Oh man.
Jen plays with Evanescence. And um, so, yeah, that's been fun. A couple of those shred collaboration things, which is interesting because I'm not really of that school as much as people would think. I'm more of like a guy in bands and like just a musician who gigs to do whatever, just a lot of what I do is play rhythm guitar these days or play songs. And so it's funny how many of these guys are running their YouTube channels and are just all about the shred. So it's really educational for me to do some of
I
those.
I can't believe that Joel Hoekstra just looked me in the face. It's like I'm not really about the shred. That's the last thing I thought I would hear in this, man. Well, you know what? Here's why though. The Whitesnake tour. I think I saw you on Whitesnake and Foreigner, right?
Hmm.
I saw you on that tour, and the solo that you would do in the middle of that show, right?
Hmm.
Okay, so that was not just Chuck Berry rapping with the crowd. That wasn't hitting one note and the crowd yelling. That was a very well thought out, well articulated solo. And there was a lot of fast passages in it. How does writing something like that, like what is your kind of, I guess, your process of writing and coming out with something like that? Because if anyone I'll probably link that one below as well, because to say never been about, not really about the shred and then see something like that video, you had to have some sort of like process to writing that, some sort of something in mind that you were working towards.
Well, we've done something different every tour. I think the Purple tour, I planned something out. I think it was Reb did a solo and then I did a solo, and then the Greatest Hits tour after that in 2016, same deal, but I changed mine up. I think I
Mhm.
went to acoustic for part of it in that one, and then that particular tour, David wanted Reb and I to duel it out a little bit more, and we weren't necessarily feeling the like nothing behind us, like just firing off a lick and firing off a lick back and forth across the stage thing.
Yeah.
So we were trying to come up with something that was at least could put us in some different keys and some different modes. So we ended up kind of falling back on the little, almost like the top of Eruption where there's like a chord, you know, because we were doing like three hits and then,
Yeah.
we'd one guy would play and then three hits and the other guy would play. And that, I mean, it may have been like a little a ripoff from the Eruption thing, but it actually worked great for us for what we were doing. And then we finished together in harmony on some on a couple runs that we worked out, and so that was great fun, and that's what that was. And I left it more open in that tour than the other ones. I started to fall back on some things, but I tried to improvise a little bit more than the other ones. It's for me, the improv thing is a little more scary when you're out there all alone, and you're like, all right, now I'm just gonna like improvise this solo. Is like, oh God,
Yeah, it's really taking a chance.
yeah, like what if I just fall on my face with this? So there, those were a little more scripted, and then that one, it changed quite a bit. I mean, there was definitely some things I fell into that I kept doing, but night to night. But I tried to mix it up and not make it totally rigid.
I mean, it was one of the best because whenever a guitar player goes out and the rest of the stage kind of shuts down, there's a little bit of a okay, is he going to do the same thing that we've seen other guitar players do, which there's nothing wrong with. It's why it's there. You know, it's paying homage to the guitar players of the past more than anything.
Yeah.
But there's a certain degree where you're like, okay, I really hope something new and kind of different comes out of this. And that was something that I experienced in yours that I hadn't seen in a while. And it was just very melodic. You don't seem to ever give up. You don't give up the melody just to shred ever. From what I've seen, it seems like you've always got the melody first.
Well, I think just always trying to find a balance of that stuff. I've been teaching a lot lately and talking about that. Like, it's like get all your chops together, but then try and use it in short bursts rather than endless phrases. So in that particular instance, though, definitely more of the endless phrases happen because I mean, it's people can say that all they want, but if you step out there and you just play a real slow hand melody during that section, it's like, okay, yeah, but so what? I mean, the idea is that the intention of those sections are to showcase your chops. So there's definitely a little bit more of that going on there than in the rest of the show. Um, it's funny when I joined Whitesnake, I hadn't done one of those like a guitar solo on stage since my very first band, like since I was 16,
Really?
17 years old. So it had been a minute, man. I was like, oh my God, I've never, I haven't had to do this really. I mean, I've definitely worked on instrumental guitar and all that stuff, but I was never in some kind of band where they're like, we're giving the stage to you for like 3, 4 minutes or whatever. So that was it was new. It was
And
not
every guitar player, when they get a chance to finally do that, I feel like that's a rite of passage.
um yeah, I mean, it just was interesting to have to go do it again.
Yeah, that's absolutely killer. And it was a great spot. It was very memorable. And I even seeing some of my favorite bands, I can't place some of my favorite guitar solos like in that same way. And so we've been bringing up the teaching a lot, and something that I wanted to ask you because it seems like your career was very premeditated. It doesn't seem like any of this was really an accident in any way. Like, was this the intention your whole life? Like, when you were going to grow up, you were going to be a rock star. Was that your plan?
No, not really. I mean, I would say it's more like the day-to-day thing, I grew up with that first band, but I was studying classical and learned how to play jazz, and I was just trying to be a good guitar player, and then keeping my options open. I mean, I did a couple years of junior college doing classical guitar, and then when I went to GIT, I guess in the back of your mind, you're like, hey, maybe I'll be like discovered as some kind of, guitar virtuoso, be another like, shrapnel Varney guy or something. And thankfully for me, the worst and best thing happened at that point is Nirvana broke, like right when I got out there, basically. I mean, I think I graduated from GIT and literally Smells Like Teen Spirit came out. And it was like, oh, yeah, that's the end of all of that. Like,
All guitar playing, yeah,
yeah.
just gone right in one fell swoop.
So that was one of the best things that ever happened to me because then I had to find a way to make a living with my guitar and do all these things without falling back on having chops as like my calling card. Like, having that just unleashed a wave of like doing you name it, man. I mean, like just I've done so many different things that I think people don't realize I did along the way to be doing what I'm doing. And then it's interesting to have it come full circle and be making a living playing the music that I started out on because I definitely started out on that like kind of, 70s, 80s rock. I like the 70s a lot, man, but the 70s, 80s rock, classic rock. And um, now that ended up being what I did the best at over the years. But I did play all different kinds of things, man. I mean I backed up a lot of singer songwriters in my day. I've played in a hip hop bands, acid jazz bands, and I played in a wedding band years ago. I played in theatrical productions like a blues show. I played. I was the bass player for the Turtles, Happy Together, and
Really?
I played in like a Motown band for a little bit, and like I mean I've done like all kinds of stuff to end up having I guess what I started out on come full circle for me, but yeah, I think all that was really good for me because it taught me a level of musicality and how to be a pro and with like above and beyond like a guy who can shred and then thinks like he's super valuable because he can shred,
That the
which
rest
I
of the
mean
world owes them?
now yes, exactly, nowadays anybody can do that, so it was good to it teaches you some humility.
Yeah, right. Yeah, because like honestly, because now you find you how many people, because I teach guitar as well, and how many people just want to get on and shred, and and then once they get bummed out because they found like a 10-year-old on the internet that's playing the song that they're working on better than they could ever play it. So it goes to show you where some of the shredding, like the shredding hasn't taken a lot of people as far as exactly what you just said, being a pro and being versatile. And I mean, again, like I said, it didn't seem like it was much of an accident. You were always playing in different bands, playing with different people. Now you're playing with Whitesnake, Trans-Siberian Orchestra, and Cher.
I would say the answer that more specifically or more accurately would be that it's stay productive every day and ride the wave. Like let life carry you where you're going to go. I do get a lot of people asking me about, hey, how do I, it's my dream to play with TSO. How do I get an audition? And it's like I never ever did things like that. Like in terms of going, this is the only thing I want to play with. I just played like all the time, stayed busy and let life kind of carry me to opportunities and then obviously try and do my best at every turn and hopefully stay hungry and like look for some opportunities too and make them happen. But in terms of what works out, sometimes it's like the weirdest stuff, like I say often in interviews, but I'll say it again for those that haven't heard it. But I mean, it's like my best examples of that are like Rock of Ages, which was a Broadway show that ran here in New York for over 6 years. And that totally changed my life, man. But I was not like an 11-year-old kid with my guitar playing Black Sabbath going, someday I'm going to be on Broadway. Like, no way. That makes no sense at all. But yet
Yeah,
it
that's
ended
not
up
how
being,
you do it, I guess, right?
but it ended up being this thing that totally changed my life. And then the other thing is Cher. Like, there was no way that 11-year-old kid playing Sabbath and Ozzy and AC/DC was like, someday I'm going to play with Cher. But having the opportunity to work with a pop icon and have an opportunity to work with all the talented musicians in her camp and all the talented people and play for large audiences all around the world with her. I mean, that's great stuff. That's like awesome, life-changing stuff.
Wow. It's the roster is unbelievable. It blows my mind every time that I think you know, those are the three that come up with your name, but and fourth being Rock of Ages. Those are the four big ones that seem to come up. But now after hearing the backstory behind those of like getting to there, it makes a lot more sense now that that would be the pathway, as opposed to just having your, you know, that exact mindset that you just said, where you're like set on, you know, being Angus Young, like the movie Rockstar. Remember that with Mark Wahlberg,
Right. Yeah.
where
Yeah.
yeah, it's like that, where he just wanted to be the
Yeah.
singer
That was not me. Yeah. I was more like, I'm going to be a guitar player. And that was, yes,
for better or for worse.
I was never that specific about things. I think I was always really open-minded about like how it was going to happen. And then just as work happens, you know, you just go like, hey, cool. And just do the best you can with it all and let it, the things that are meant to work out will, and the things that are not meant to work out won't.
So there was never a version of Joel Hoekstra that would have been a fireman, as opposed.
I I really had no backup plan. I watched a lot of guitar players when I was younger that you know, had their plan B, and their plan B just went and just took over their life in a very short order. So I have never really had a plan B, and still really don't. So I mean, that's kind of my definition of success, is just getting through all this and never having to do anything else. So hopefully that I can, you know, finish it off and make it to the finish line, man, you know. But things have worked out really like more than I would have expected in so many ways. I think I made it through a lot of tough, like what I look back on now is like, wow, tougher times. But I just was so like happy with all these ridiculous accomplishments. Like, man, I'm traveling out of town to play a gig. Like that was a huge stuff, you know, and like,
What was the first one that you would have went out on?
uh,
Like first
well,
major, I guess first major tour, really.
oh, first major tour was a long way in for me, man. I mean, that was kind of like Night Ranger was really the first thing that I got in
Oh,
where we were out, and um, so which I did from 2008 to 2014 with those guys. So, but really before that, I mean, I would travel and stuff with some gigs, but that was like kind of the first like regular. I guess the Turtles, we did do this tour called Hippie Fest that I was on with that, and that was pretty cool. I played guitar at that point. I think I did bass for like a year or two with them, and then we switched over to guitar. The guitar
okay.
player left, and their bass player wanted to come back, so they switched me over.
Wow. That unreal, man. And so then from, I guess, how long did it take after that? When did the Whitesnake thing start? When did that happen?
2014,
Oh wow, so
basically, yeah.
fairly recent. Geez, so what was that time frame in between there? How many years that had to be?
So we'll from what do you mean?
From the time you would have done Night Ranger, the Turtles.
Well, the Turtles were before Night Ranger. That kind of led right up to Night Ranger. I was still working with them and doing Love Janis, this show about Janis Joplin that had ran. That's why I came to New York. I did that show for a couple of years, and the director would take me and I would be the band leader at these regional theaters or whatever, and sit down for a month or two and do the show, 8 shows a week, and that was a great experience. That show, I did a lot of those. Like I would say a solid 13, 1,400 of those. In terms of, hey, when you do theater, man, it's a lot of reps. So
Wow.
you're constantly on stage, 8 a week. And with Rock of Ages, I did even more than that. I don't even know what the
Yeah,
total
that
is on
show
that,
really
but
ran.
yeah, I mean, 6 years, I would say. I was there probably 70% of the time because I was with Night Ranger and TSO at the time, so I would leave and sub out quite a bit, but I would still say I must have done 1,700, 1,800 of those.
Wow.
An awful lot. Yeah.
I have actually a student that I was on with earlier today, and he's like, oh, who are you interviewing tonight? And I had said I said a guitar player for Whitesnake, for Cher, for Trans-Siberian Orchestra, and I was like, and he was on Rock of Ages, and he jumped up, his eyes just shot out of his head. He's like, wait a second, who is it? And I told him it's Joel Hoekstra. He runs to the back and he grabs a guitar pick that he caught at Rock of Ages,
Oh, nice.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, so that show really had an impact, man. I'm sure as much as
Yeah.
it did on your life, it had like an impact on a lot of people's lives at the time.
Yeah, it
That
did.
really ran.
It was something different in terms of, uh, well, I mean, we were on stage, but it wasn't quite like being in a band. It was its own thing, you know. It was like just a very unique gig, and you have to realize what your audience is at that point. It's a funny show, and tourists are coming to see a show about 80s rock, and so you got to kind of play up the cliches and have fun and not worry about whatever, trying to
Hair goes a little bit higher that night, you know?
work in your latest sweep arpeggio or whatever. I mean, stuff that just doesn't matter all that much in the grand scheme of things. So, um, yeah, I mean, the main thing with that was so amazing was that I could sub out when I needed
Yeah.
to uh, go through the touring. Like, because when I got that gig, I already had Night Ranger. So if I would have had to like quit Night Ranger to do that show, I don't think I would have done it. I mean, with all due respect to Rock of Ages, it's still not like being in a band and being out touring. And I think me being in Night Ranger led more to Whitesnake than me being in Rock of Ages. Like, I don't think David Coverdale would have said, "I want to get the guitar player from this Broadway show,"
Yeah.
if that makes sense. So,
No, no, totally, totally.
yeah.
That's so I'm piecing everything together in my head because it's such a you're a very well decorated musician at this point. And the one thing that we haven't touched on yet that I don't know if, I play a holiday show every year, but you seem to play the ultimate holiday show, the Trans-Siberian Orchestra. Are you missing it this year?
Oh yeah, definitely, man. I mean, that's like my holiday tradition,
Yeah.
basically. This is year number 10 with those guys. So it's really weird. And not to see all the guys in the band who are basically my best friends from being with them so long now at this point, but also, we have open signing lines and so many of the fans come to multiple shows and you get to
And many
know.
years in a row. Anyone that
Yeah,
I've
yeah.
met that goes to a TSO show has seen you guys probably 10 times.
Right. So you actually get to know them. It's like just being online, but in the signing line so they bring you presents when you're on tour. I mean, it's like, it's just this whole tradition that's like not there right now. So that's a bummer. But fingers are crossed for 21, hoping that we'll be back out there. But yeah, that's an amazing thing to be a part of. That was really interesting at the time when it came across in 2010 because I had Night Ranger already and I had Rock of Ages and it was like now here's this opportunity to join Trans-Siberian Orchestra and I thought, is this thing gonna be the thing that makes like the House of Cards topple, or is it going to be like a great addition? Because it was really the first time then that I had to not do Night Ranger for a certain amount of time. So I'd have to sub out of Night Ranger for November and December, basically.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
that was difficult, but those guys were cool about it. I mean, I have to give them credit. And I was able to maintain Night Ranger and be able to come back every January. And I think they understood in the grand scheme of things that it was just not necessarily me not wanting to be with Night Ranger. It was just me having this opportunity to do this. And so they were cool about it. And being able to do all three of those during that period of time, which that went on for, I guess, 4 or 5 years of doing all three was really
Wow.
pretty amazing. And then having it basically then go down to Whitesnake and TSO and then have it add Cher when David was
Jesus.
having his knees done. So then it became Whitesnake, Cher, and TSO. So yeah, I've just kind of tried to keep irons in the fire and make sure that I'm able to work and um, I guess you just never know what's going to happen with one gig. So for me, it's always been good to have multiple options and just try to keep working. I really don't enjoy like not feeling like I'm getting better and I always feel a little disappointed, like I'm just wasting time.
Of course. And that's why I initially had asked if like you had a pretty, so if you had a routine right now that you've been holding to. And as far as practicing goes, right now, is there a practice schedule going on in there to like kind of supplement that?
No, it's
No.
no, there's not, because I mean my work is the practice right now.
Yeah,
So I would say the teaching thing, I keep the definitely the dust off of my chops during it, being able to do that. But then any of these sessions I'm doing for people, I mean that those are
that's
definitely
keeping
keeping
it
my
up.
chops up. The rhythm chops are up right now, trying to get the stuff in for Michael Sweet. He basically wanted me to write all the riffs for the album, so I've been hitting a lot of that stuff right now. But yeah, it's just kind of like whatever the gig is at the moment.
You just do it.
But yeah,
Just comes
yeah,
down
but
to you just do it. Which I'm hearing a lot of that in this conversation, that it just comes down to you've just been doing it.
yeah, I mean, I always have things that I need to get done. I mean, so right now I have three sessions waiting, and I've got um, three more riffs to get in for Michael, and I've got a video to shoot for the quarantine jam thing, and um, gosh, I don't know what else offhand, but I mean, there's all those things present themselves in those cameos, man. You know, a lot of people want me to play certain songs and certain things, and I mean, it's like, like I'm taking requests on there almost sometimes, and so that's also something where I'm actively playing and keeping my chops together, and because sometimes people are like, just shred. Like, I want you to just go nuts. And like, so I'll end up like doing one and go, oh, that sucks. And then do another take and do another take. Next thing I know, I've been shredding for like 30 minutes, like
Yeah,
getting
the
it done.
hand, your hand is starting
Yeah.
to. Wow, man. So if dude, again, I'm kind of in shock. Do you manage? You can't manage everything yourself in this case, right?
Oh, definitely. Yeah. I've always managed myself, man. I've never had a manager.
What?
No, no. I don't know why I would, man. Honestly, I've never met anybody who understands what it is I'm doing. Most managers would tell me not to do it the way I'm doing it. They'd be like, no, 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 you need to be more selective about what you're doing, And it's like, no, 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 I need to do everything. Like they don't understand that
So
sometimes.
I guess is that the Joel Hoekstra brand then? It's just is do everything, just do whatever wherever it takes you.
Well, you're only really fit to turn something down if you're truly too busy to be doing it. I mean, so I think there's a lot of people that just don't do stuff because they're lazy. And then what are you doing? You're selling yourself short because you don't want to actually get better at what it is you're supposed to be doing in the first place.
Yeah,
So,
they think they want it, right?
well, I don't know. I'm just saying, like that's so I always do stuff. I mean, when I had to start from scratch out here when Love Janis closed, I had left Chicago and didn't have my band, and I really didn't have anything. And I was living in New York City, and I was like, oh my God. And the first thing I did was just like nonstop work. And if it was like going to somebody's house and write with them for the day just for no money, just to be like blah blah blah, or I'm actively working. Like there's times where the money comes, and then there's other times where it's like you're just working just to work, and then, but I think you're not really suited to ever negotiate a better situation for yourself until you're so too busy that you can't do it. And then that's what happens. You get people that want you to come do that. Like, hey, that was awesome and you came and did that. Oh, sorry, man, I can't because I'm actually doing this now and they're paying me to do it. And oh, okay, well, I'll pay you to come do it. And then, and yeah, and that's the way it works. Yeah.
Wow, man, it's dude. We've already been on here for half an hour, and there's no shortage of like I could keep going for another half an hour, but the last couple of things I want to know. I want to know as far as guitar players out right now, new up and coming guys that you might be following.
God, I'm the worst with that. The absolute worst, man, because I'm always just trying to get through my day and play myself. So I couldn't really tell you like who the
Who the next
yeah
the next
I
guys?
couldn't. I mean, I was flabbergasted that I did this Bradley Hall, Kate Devin um shred compilation thing, and it was all like the modern generation shredders, And it was amazing to see how many chops there are out there. I mean, some of those guys are, it's like insane,
Yeah,
you
it's
know,
getting pretty ridiculous, isn't
what
it?
they're doing at a young age and stuff. So, I mean, it was an eye opener for me just because I'm so out of that loop, man. I'm always trying to, hey, I'm making this album or do a touring with so and so or whatever. So, there's lots of that out there.
Who would have been the last guitar player that you really sat down and listened to and were like, okay, that's a favorite?
Um, well, I just mainly know people from my generation growing up, uh, more than anything, and get influenced by people that I work with, and to a degree, it's also like my teachers when I was young, and um, and also influenced by bands a lot. Like I always thought about bands, like when people are like, who are your favorite guitar or your biggest influences? My thing was always to name the bands more than the I mean, I definitely grew up on some of the guitar albums. I definitely enjoyed like Vi's Passion and Warfare when I was a teen,
Of course.
and Satch's Surfing with the Alien, and I mean, I
Always.
I wore out a lot of those, and I wore out like Rising Force from Ingve, and all those albums were great, but I still would say like it was more like who are your influences, like the Scorpions and Rush,
Yeah, buddy.
like that kind of thing, right? Where
Of course.
and that goes for a lot of different styles. I mean, I liked Rush, and I like the Trevor Rabin era, yes, a lot more than the Steve Howe even, which is not too cool to say, but I like the Trevor Rabin stuff, man. I like those songs. They're great songs. Um, I like a lot of the classic rock stuff. I like the Doors. I like Pink Floyd. I like Zeppelin, Hendrix. So I'd say melodic bands like, Journey, Foreigner, the more metal bands like growing up, Sabbath, Iron Maiden, Ozzy. Like, I mean, that's like I grew up on
The
all that
best, yeah,
stuff.
the best of the best, right?
AC/DC, like,
Yeah.
we mentioned that earlier. I mean, Back in Black was like, I listened to that 10 million times when I was a kid.
Yeah, you and a lot of people, man.
Oh,
You
yeah.
and a lot of people.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
it's one of the best, and that's that's that kind of presence. Those guitar players have that same kind of presence that you obviously. Those bands have the same kind of presence that you kind of tend to have on stage. So it's no it's no surprise there, I guess. You know, it's that long hair. Obviously the bigger, larger than life
Right.
rock star kind of style that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Angus was definitely like for me, that's what made me want to play. Just his
Oh, me
whole
too, man.
it was more than just actually more it was more than the playing, like more important than the playing when I was a kid because what did I know about his pocket and his tone when I was a kid? I didn't really get it.
Yeah, no, but you
Although
knew the duck walk, right?
the older I get, the more I think it's awesome. But I love this whole like stage thing and this whole
Yeah.
like, energetic approach. When you're a kid and you're full of energy, you look at that and you're like, that's how come, all adults aren't like that. That's what adults should be like, is like
Yeah,
naturally.
exactly, exactly. Like you're attracted to the character, right?
Yeah,
He
definitely.
he had that character right away, and that's that was me too, man. My first guitar was a Gibson SG, well, an Epiphone SG, and and I had live at Donington, and I duck walked around my room. I didn't know a
Yeah.
single chord, but that's what I did. It didn't matter, man. And that's that's the presence that I'm talking about, and that's one of the aspects about your live show that I find that a lot of people don't have anymore, and especially like in maybe like some of the more modern, prog-esque kind of world. Right now, you have a lot of higher guitars that are playing. They're just
Yeah.
standing there and looking at what they're playing beautifully. But you are one of the low slingers, man. Low slung, hair's flying, stage presence, stage show, and that's it's kind of harder to find now.
Yeah, well, I guess that's the difference from growing up playing in the studio and on video as opposed to growing up playing gigs. So
That's
so
that's
that's
a
nothing.
really that's a really good point, and that's a pretty heavy heavy shot for like some younger guitar players to hear right now who are behind their keyboards shredding amazing on TikTok.
Yeah, but it's not to be judgmental at all. It's actually
Of
just
course.
it's probably what it is, and so that's definitely not to put me ahead of any of them because I wouldn't. I
Not
don't
at
look at it.
all.
I don't look at it like that. But it just is what it is. Like a lot of what I did growing up. I mean, we weren't uploading stuff to YouTube when I was a kid. I that was it wasn't even around, man, you know? So I wasn't doing that. I was just like trying to what's my next thing for playing a gig and playing live and teaching lessons, and that was my only avenue to I guess a career and trying to get notoriety or whatever. So
Of course.
it's just a different landscape, man. I mean, I have a tremendous respect for anybody that spends a lot of time with the guitar and is working at it hard. That's the bottom line. So, but that is probably the difference. I mean, I you have to realize when I tell you just in those shows alone, like Love Janis, doing that many and doing as many as I did with Rock of Ages, and then you think about all the bands. I mean, that time when I was playing with Rock of Ages, Night Ranger, and TSO, I was playing more shows than there were days in a year at that point. I was playing, if you included sessions, I was probably doing a roughly 375 to 400 gigs a year at that point. So that's a stupid amount. I mean, that's like that
Wow.
stuff, the hours that you're on stage accumulate and add up and do make a difference from, I guess, the 10 hours of like trying to videotape yourself playing some amazing thing for YouTube or whatever as well. I mean, it still is that they're putting in all the hours too, just in a different avenue.
Dude, of course, and I'm on both sides of it. I am
Yeah,
doing the YouTube thing, and I am also very much, grew up.
yeah,
I grew up on the cusp of both. You know what I mean? Where
yeah.
where the younger guys would be doing the YouTube, and then guys like you would be doing, didn't have that, and I grew up right as the two kind of collided. So you kind of had to have both.
Yeah.
Kind of
I
covered.
mean, I'm definitely having to do more of it right now, for sure. I mean, with live shows shut down, so all these, the quarantine jams and those
Yeah,
collaborations
and
and
the
stuff,
Zoom calls.
that's the nature of, well, this I do anyway on the road and stuff. I've always been open to talking. I mean, it's something productive in my day that it is, I can feel good at the end of the day to be like, yep, I actually did an interview earlier today too, because I mean, obviously my album's out and promoting that. So,
Of course.
yeah, for me to do a couple interviews in the day and get the song ideas to Michael, and that was pretty much my day to day. It was a day off of teaching, so a little bit lighter. But I mean, I put in, let's say, 3 hours on the song ideas for him earlier. So
That's sick. That's absolutely sick, man. And it's so great and so comforting to see someone who treat like someone like yourself treating it so much like the business, taking the reins and doing it for themselves the way really just really doing it. What if you had if you had to give a piece of advice, it could be to your younger self, you could be to the younger guitar players that are coming up. What advice would you give about doing it, really making it in the business?
I would say just what we've been talking about. I mean, just work and just put in the time and let your heart kind of guide you where you're going to go, and then let life guide you too. I mean, like I said, sometimes you get opportunities. Just say yes to everything, do everything. And I mean, I've like we talked about some of my weird gigs, but what led to Rock of Ages was me subbing in the pits here. I live in New York City on Broadway for my friend who lives a couple blocks away. I met him when he was helping me with one of my albums, The Moon is Falling, one of my instrumental albums. I met him, and he's, this guy who was our mutual friend said, JJ plays on Broadway in the pits. And he was like, oh man, you ever consider subbing? Let me know if you ever want to sub. I was like, man, I haven't read music on that kind of level since college, and like, that would be a little crazy. He was like, oh no, man, we'll get you a recording of it and give you the book. And so I started subbing for him on whatever shows he got, and then that led to Rock of Ages. Really, one of the guys who was the keyboard player on one of the shows I subbed for became the music supervisor and hired me. So it's saying yes to things like that where you're like, well, why would I do that? And it's like, well, what better do I have to do than play guitar? I mean, I'm a guitar player, right? Like
Yeah.
why? So
Yeah, no, no. I guess
yeah,
no gig is is below you, right?
Yeah, I mean, you're getting offered it for a reason, right? Unless you're genuinely too busy to do it. If you're like, I would never have time to do that, and I do turn things down because of that now. I mean, if there's something that people are like, hey, dude, can you do this? Like, you know what, man, I would, but I would not have the time.
Of course.
Because I'm genuinely slammed right now, man. I can tell you I'm pushing it about as hard as I can. Like I get to I have two little kids too, so that adds in
Awesome.
significantly, you know. I
Yeah.
mean that is like a light years away from the old days of like being single and being like, okay, my whole day I can just kind of do whatever I want right now. It's like so I have a lot of responsibilities in that area as well.
Wow. And as far as okay, people don't always like touching on the financial aspect, but do you have any advice when it comes to young guys coming up, financially speaking?
No, I mean, I would just say I never had enough to like go crazy with all that stuff. I guess my thought would be like just work all the time and let some gigs pay you more money than others and don't until you're really in a position to negotiate, don't negotiate. You know, there's nothing worse than the person who's going to like negotiate and they have nothing else to do. So they're grinding for like a little bit of money and like I it's just so like not becoming to be that person and
Yeah.
like you know if you have something that's going to pay you more then just say hey look man right during this time like I you know have this gig and it pays me this well okay well then maybe that other person is going to pay you more then but until you really have that opportunity that like don't bother being
Just
that
take
guy
them.
yeah just take it
Just
man
take
like
it. Yeah.
just take it, yeah, because you actually will get busy enough that you're like, hey, I can't do it. You know, I'm doing this, and that's when people realize, like, oh man, like you know, you gotta actually pay that person, right? It's
Yeah.
like I said, I used to have people I do things for free for them, and then once it became like, you know, I was busy enough that they were like, oh, okay, yeah, all right, I'll give you a little bit of money, man, you know, if you'll come over and do it. Okay, cool. But even to date, like yeah, I'm doing a lot of sessions for people, but a lot of these people that ask me to play on their songs, they're not millionaire artists, you know, they're struggling musicians. So I'm not gonna like, you know, put them over the barrel and make every penny I can out of them. That's not right, you
Yeah.
know.
Of course.
So like, hey, what's your budget? Just you know, pay me what you can. And so I'm not like a hard, I guess, when it comes to that, you know, that stuff. You just let money come to you, man. Just always work and have a good attitude and do the best you can, and then money will come your way.
Joel, that absolutely perfect, man. Thank you so much, dude. Thank you so much for doing this. I can't thank you enough.
You bet, man. Thank you so much.
It's been
Appreciate
awesome.
it.
What any last links that you want to mention for anyone watching?
Anybody can just go to my website. I got a difficult name, but
I'll put everything
joelhoekstra.com.
below. You know.
Cool, yeah. Just joelhoekstra.com, and then you can link over to any of my social media stuff from there. And I'd appreciate it if anybody listened to the Hard to Say Goodbye from Running Games. That's coming out February 12th. That'd be cool. Check out the song sampler. I think even on the homepage of my website, I got a bunch of these quarantine jams we've been talking about. They're all there, so people can watch all that. Watch the Echo Bats song, the project I have with Tony Harnell, and so any of that would be great. If they want to support, that'd be awesome.
Dude, awesome, man. Thank you so much as always. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the Working Class Musician YouTube channel. I've been Jimmy Franklin, and this is Joel Hoekstra from Whitesnake, Cher, Trans-Siberian Orchestra. Thank you guys so much. All the links are below, and we'll catch you guys next time.
Cheers.